Learn to Control Your Mind, Best Motivational Speech by Simon Sinek. We live in a world where distractions fight for our attention every second. Notifications, opinions, and pressures constantly pulling us in every direction. But Simon Sinek teaches us something powerful: leadership begins within. Before we can inspire others, we must first lead ourselves. And that starts with mastering our mind. Controlling your mind doesn't mean silencing every thought. It means understanding why those thoughts exist and choosing which ones deserve your focus. When you learn to control your mind, you stop reacting to life and start responding with purpose. You stop chasing every noise around you and begin listening to the signal inside you. The difference between those who drift and those who lead is clarity. And clarity begins when you take command of your own thoughts. Every action begins with a thought, and every thought has a reason behind it. Before reacting emotionally or impulsively, ask yourself, why am I thinking this way? Simon Sinek reminds us that our why is the compass that keeps us grounded when chaos surrounds us. When your mind starts to spiral into fear, anger, or comparison, return to your why. The moment you connect your thinking to purpose, you take control of your direction. This is how leaders think. With intention, not reaction. Control doesn't mean resistance, it means awareness. It's not about silencing emotion, but understanding what drives it. The more you question your thoughts through the lens of why, the more clarity and control you gain over your mind. Simon Sinek often says, the energy we give to what we cannot control drains the energy we need for what we can. Most people waste mental strength worrying about outcomes, opinions, and situations they can't change. Learning to control your mind means shifting your attention to what's within your circle of influence. Your attitude, your actions, and your reactions. The key is not to eliminate uncertainty, but to stay grounded despite it. When you stop trying to control everything, you reclaim the energy to improve something, yourself. Control of the mind is not about domination but direction. The strongest leaders know that peace comes not from managing the world, but from managing their own focus. Your mind listens to everything you tell it. If you feed it fear, it will see threats. If you feed it belief, it will see opportunities. Simon Sinek teaches that optimism is not ignoring reality. It's choosing to see possibility within it. To control your mind, you must first take responsibility for your inner language. Replace "I can't" with "I'm learning." Replace "I'm not enough" with "I'm growing every day." The words you speak to yourself shape your mental world. Leaders are not those without self-doubt. They are those who respond to doubt with courage. Control your dialogue, and you'll control your direction. It's not magic, it's mindset. Mastery of the mind doesn't happen overnight. It's a lifelong discipline. Simon Sinek reminds us that consistency beats intensity. Controlling your mind is not about perfection, it's about progress. Every time you pause before reacting, you strengthen your mental leadership. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you build resilience. Think of it like building trust with yourself. One decision, one thought at a time. Patience turns control into power. The calmest minds are not born that way, they are trained through daily practice. When you learn to be patient with your own growth, you stop forcing control and start embodying it, and that's where true leadership and freedom begins. Every action begins with a thought, and every thought has a reason behind it. Before you react emotionally, impulsively, or out of habit, pause and ask yourself a simple but profound question. Why am I thinking this way? That single question can completely change how you respond to life. Simon Sinek teaches that start with why isn't just about organizations or goals. It's also about your inner world. When you understand why you think, feel, or act a certain way, you gain clarity. You stop being a passenger of your emotions and become the driver of your direction. The truth is, most people never question their thoughts. They simply believe them. They allow fear, insecurity, or comparison to dictate their behavior without realizing they can choose differently. The mind becomes powerful when it learns to pause, reflect, and understand the intention behind every thought that passes through it. Your why is your compass in the chaos of everyday life. The world constantly tries to influence your mind, telling you what success means, what you should want, and how you should think. But when you start with why, you begin filtering these external voices through your internal purpose. Suddenly, not every opinion matters, and not every criticism deserves your attention. You understand what aligns with your mission and what doesn't. This mental clarity protects you from confusion and exhaustion. Without a clear why, your thoughts become scattered, reactive, and easily manipulated. But when your why is strong, your focus becomes unstoppable. You learn to lead your thoughts instead of letting your thoughts lead you. You start responding instead of reacting, and that subtle shift changes everything. Your productivity, your confidence, and even your peace of mind. When you connect your thinking to purpose, you begin to control your direction in life. Many people let circumstances dictate their emotions and behaviors, thinking they have no choice. But you always have a choice. You can't always control what happens, but you can control how you interpret it. Simon Sinek reminds us that leaders think intentionally, not impulsively. They don't let fear or pressure define their mindset. Instead, they ask, does this thought serve my purpose? If it doesn't, they let it go. This practice turns chaos into clarity. It transforms worry into wisdom. Your thoughts shape your world, and your purpose shapes your thoughts. So when you start with why, your mind begins to operate from meaning rather than fear. Control doesn't mean resistance, it means awareness. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending to be calm. It's about understanding what drives those emotions. Why do you feel anxious? Why do you feel angry or insecure? Behind every feeling is a story, and behind every story is a belief. When you trace that belief back to its why, you can see whether it empowers or limits you. Most of the time, we are controlled by unexamined beliefs, old patterns from our past, fears planted by others, or assumptions we've never questioned. The moment you shine awareness on them, they lose their power. That's what control truly means, not fighting your mind but understanding it. Awareness is the foundation of mental strength. The beauty of starting with why is that it invites you to slow down in a world that's constantly rushing. Every moment you pause to ask why creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space lies your freedom. It's in that pause that you choose who you want to be. Without that pause, your thoughts take over. You become reactive, saying things you don't mean, doing things you later regret. But when you understand your why, you create intention. You become thoughtful rather than thoughtless. You start living on purpose instead of by accident. Simon Sinek often says that leadership is not about power but responsibility. And the first responsibility is leading your own mind. Most people search for control in the external world, trying to manage situations, people, and outcomes. But true control begins internally. The mind that understands its purpose cannot be easily shaken by external chaos. When you start with why, you shift from control through force to control through clarity. You no longer waste energy fighting circumstances. You use that energy to align your thoughts with your mission. For example, instead of thinking, "This is too hard," you ask, "Why does this challenge matter?" That shift transforms frustration into focus. The problem doesn't disappear, but your perspective does. You no longer see obstacles as threats, you see them as teachers guiding you closer to your why. When you understand your why, your thoughts naturally align with it. Doubt becomes data. Fear becomes feedback. Every negative thought becomes an opportunity to return to your purpose. You begin to realize that your mind is not your enemy. It's a tool. But like any tool, it must be directed. If you don't lead your thoughts, they'll lead you somewhere random, often toward anxiety or distraction. Simon Sinek's philosophy reminds us that purpose gives direction to everything, even your inner dialogue. You don't need to silence your mind, you just need to give it meaning. Every why you answer strengthens your focus, builds your confidence, and gives you mental control over life's chaos. There's also a deeper layer to starting with why. It connects you to something bigger than yourself. When you operate with purpose, your thoughts serve a mission greater than comfort or ego. You stop being consumed by small frustrations because you're anchored in something larger. The person who knows their why doesn't crumble under pressure, they grow through it. This is why Simon Sinek often speaks about service, contribution, and impact. A controlled mind is not just disciplined. It's directed toward helping others, creating value, and making meaning. Purpose gives your thoughts a destination. Without it, even intelligence becomes noise. With it, even small actions gain significance. It's easy to get lost in overthinking, analyzing, worrying, doubting. But why brings simplicity back. When you start with why, you declutter your mental space. You no longer chase every idea or fear that enters your head. You become selective. You choose which thoughts deserve energy and which ones don't. This selection process is the essence of mental control. It's not about thinking less, it's about thinking better. The world rewards business, but your mind rewards clarity. And clarity comes when you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Why am I doing it?" The answer to that question shapes not only your thoughts, but your entire life. In moments of doubt, come back to your why. When the noise of the world feels overwhelming, remind yourself what truly matters. Purpose is not just motivation, it's mental armor. It shields you from comparison, distraction, and fear. Simon Sinek's wisdom is timeless because it starts with something deeply human: meaning. The human mind seeks meaning in everything it does. When it doesn't find it, it wanders, worries, and wastes energy. But when it finds its why, it focuses, it creates, and it leads. Learning to control your mind begins with understanding why you think the way you do, and choosing thoughts that align with your greater purpose. So, when you wake up tomorrow and your mind starts racing with 100 worries or doubts, take a deep breath and ask yourself, why am I thinking this? That simple pause is where control begins. It's where confusion transforms into clarity and chaos into calm. Control doesn't come from force, it comes from understanding. And understanding starts with asking why. Simon Sinek's message is not just about leadership in the world. It's about leadership of the self. When you start with why, even in your thoughts, you lead your mind instead of being led by it. And when you can lead your mind, there's truly nothing you can't achieve. Most people spend their lives trying to control everything around them: situations, people, and outcomes, only to realize that control is an illusion. Simon Sinek reminds us that true power comes not from controlling everything, but from focusing on what you can actually influence. The mind becomes scattered when it worries about what it cannot change. But when you shift your focus to what lies within your circle of influence, your actions, your mindset, your behavior, you reclaim your energy and peace. It's not about ignoring reality, but choosing where to place your attention. When you direct your thoughts toward what's in your control, you start creating progress instead of frustration. This is the mindset of a true leader: to be calm in chaos, grounded in uncertainty, and intentional about every thought that drives action. The moment you master that focus, you begin mastering your life. Simon Sinek often says, "The energy we give to what we cannot control drains the energy we need for what we can." Think about how much time we lose overthinking, replaying mistakes, worrying about opinions, or imagining problems that never happen. Every minute spent on things outside our influence weakens our focus on the things we can change right now. The truth is, most people don't lack ability, they lack direction. They spread their attention thin, chasing every problem instead of improving what's within reach. Learning to control your mind starts with asking a better question: what can I do right now? That question shifts you from helplessness to action. When your thoughts serve your influence, not your insecurities, you move from anxiety to clarity. You stop wasting energy reacting to the world and start using that energy to create impact within it. Life will always test you with uncertainty, challenges, setbacks, and circumstances beyond your control. But as Simon Sinek teaches, leadership is not about having power over everything. It's about choosing how to respond. When your focus stays within your influence, you build mental resilience. You stop trying to fix what's out there and start strengthening what's in here. Your thoughts, your decisions, your effort. That shift creates confidence because you're no longer a victim of the environment. You're an architect of your response. True leaders don't panic when things go wrong. They adapt. They know that control is not about dominance. It's about discipline. Every thought that focuses on what you can influence becomes a seed of growth. Every thought that clings to what you can't becomes a weight that holds you back. The choice is always yours. When you learn to focus your mind on what you can influence, you begin to experience mental freedom. You stop being drained by the uncontrollable and start being driven by purpose. Think about this. The weather, the economy, or other people's behavior are all outside your control. But how you respond to them is entirely within your power. That's where your strength lies. Simon Sinek reminds us that optimism is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about believing you can make a difference within your circle of control. Every time your mind drifts into frustration, bring it back to action. Ask, what can I do with what I have? That one question transforms fear into focus and confusion into clarity. Leaders thrive in uncertainty because they've trained their minds to invest energy where it matters most. On their influence, not their fears. Most of our stress doesn't come from life itself, it comes from trying to control life. The truth is, control of everything is exhausting and impossible, but influence is powerful, natural, and sustainable. Simon Sinek often speaks about energy as a resource. Where you put it determines your results. When your mind chases every uncontrollable detail, you lose energy for the things that truly matter. But when you concentrate your mental power on actions that make a difference, progress follows naturally. The calmest people aren't those with easy lives, they're those who focus wisely. They understand that the key to mental control is direction, not domination. Once you start investing your thoughts in what you can actually do, your confidence grows, your stress decreases, and your results expand. That is how the most effective leaders think. Through purpose, not panic. There's an important truth in Simon Sinek's message. Focusing on what you can influence doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means addressing them intelligently. When your mind is scattered, every small issue feels massive. But when you focus your thinking, you see clearly what's worth your effort and what's not. For example, you can't control whether people like you, but you can control how you treat them. You can't control outcomes, but you can control preparation. You can't control timing, but you can control persistence. This mindset builds strength because it gives your thoughts direction. Instead of trying to manage the uncontrollable, you learn to adapt, grow, and influence what you touch. Every great leader, thinker, or innovator learned this lesson. Mastery of the mind begins when you stop reacting to life and start creating within it. Simon Sinek often uses the concept of the infinite game. The idea that life isn't about winning, it's about continuing to play and improve. The same is true for your thoughts. You can't control every thought that comes in, but you can decide which ones to keep playing with. You can influence the direction of your thinking, and over time, that shapes your results. When you focus your mental energy on growth, gratitude, and purpose, your brain begins to see opportunity instead of obstacles. That's influence. You influence your mindset, and your mindset influences your reality. This is not about positive thinking for its own sake, it's about practical thinking for progress. The mind follows what you feed it. When you feed it influence, it returns power. When you feed it control, it returns frustration. The difference is subtle, but it's everything. The discipline of focusing on what you can influence also builds trust, both with yourself and others. People who try to control everything tend to create tension. They become rigid, fearful, or reactive. But those who focus on their influence lead with calmness and clarity. They inspire trust because they operate from intention, not insecurity. Simon Sinek teaches that leadership is about service, and you cannot serve effectively if your mind is consumed with what you can't change. The moment you focus on influence, you shift from ego to empathy, from pressure to purpose. You start asking, how can I contribute right now? That question is powerful because it centers your mind on action, not anxiety. It reminds you that even in uncertain times, you always have the ability to influence something, even if that something is your own attitude. Learning to control your mind by focusing on influence takes daily practice. It's not a one-time revelation, it's a lifelong habit. Every morning, you'll face thoughts of fear, doubt, and frustration. And that's okay. The goal isn't to erase them, but to redirect them. When you catch yourself worrying about something outside your control, pause. Breathe, then shift your focus to what you can do. That small mental adjustment builds enormous power over time. Simon Sinek would call this consistency over intensity. The idea that small, focused choices every day lead to lasting transformation. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You'll find yourself calmer in storms, more confident in uncertainty, and more creative in chaos. That's the essence of influence. Steady, deliberate, and deeply human. At its core, focusing on what you can influence is an act of leadership. Self-leadership. It's taking responsibility for your energy, your mindset, and your choices. It's realizing that control was never the goal. Clarity was. You don't need to control life to live it well, you just need to master how you respond to it. Simon Sinek's wisdom reminds us that leadership begins within, and that includes the way you manage your thoughts. When you choose influence over control, you choose peace over panic and progress over perfection. You free your mind from what it cannot change and direct it toward what it can create. And that's where true strength begins. Not in dominating the world around you, but in mastering the world within you. That's how leaders think. That's how calm becomes power. And that's how you learn to truly control your mind. Your mind is constantly listening to every word you speak to yourself, to every thought that flits across your consciousness, and to every judgment you pass on your own actions. Simon Sinek teaches that the inner dialogue we maintain shapes not just our mindset, but our entire life. If your internal voice is critical, fearful, or doubtful, your world will reflect that negativity. Conversely, when your inner dialogue is encouraging, optimistic, and purposeful, your life begins to mirror that positivity. Creating a positive inner dialogue doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect or ignoring reality. It means consciously choosing the words and thoughts that empower you rather than weaken you. Your mind is a fertile ground. Whatever you plant, doubt or belief, fear or courage, will grow. By cultivating a positive inner dialogue, you gain control over the lens through which you see the world. The first step in creating a positive inner dialogue is awareness. Most people do not realize how harshly they speak to themselves. They replay mistakes, criticize their abilities, and compare themselves to others, all without pause. Simon Sinek emphasizes that leadership begins with self-awareness, and that includes awareness of your inner voice. Observe your thoughts as if you were an outsider. Notice patterns of negativity, self-doubt, or fear. Awareness alone begins to loosen their grip. Once you can identify the destructive loops in your mind, you gain the power to challenge them. You can start asking, is this thought serving me? Does this help me grow? Awareness is the doorway to change. Without it, you are at the mercy of unconscious self-talk, letting your mind dictate feelings and actions you would never choose consciously. The next step is intentional reframing. Every time a negative thought arises, take a moment to rephrase it in a way that empowers you. Instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, say, I am learning, growing, and improving every day. Instead of thinking, I'll never succeed, replace it with, I can take the next step and make progress. Simon Sinek often stresses that leaders focus on possibilities rather than limitations. The words you feed yourself become the beliefs that guide your actions. Positive self-talk doesn't create instant perfection, but it slowly rewires your brain. Every time you consciously reframe a thought, you strengthen your ability to respond intentionally instead of reacting unconsciously. Over time, this habit becomes your default, turning your inner dialogue into a source of energy rather than a drain. Consistency is the key to sustaining a positive inner dialogue. A single positive thought cannot outweigh years of negative self-talk. You must practice daily, deliberately choosing empowering words and attitudes. Simon Sinek reminds us that leadership is built on repeated actions, not one-time inspiration. Apply the same principle to your mind. Each time you consciously redirect a thought, you strengthen your mental resilience. Each moment you choose optimism over fear, curiosity over judgment, and possibility over doubt, your mind rewires itself for growth. Think of your inner dialogue as training a muscle. The more you exercise it intentionally, the stronger it becomes. Eventually, positivity becomes not just a choice, but a habit embedded in your very thinking. Positive inner dialogue also requires compassion toward yourself. Many people mistake self-discipline for self-criticism, believing that harshness motivates better results. Simon Sinek teaches that leadership begins with empathy. And empathy includes how you treat yourself. Speak to yourself as you would speak to a friend. Offer encouragement, understanding, and patience. Recognize that mistakes and failures are not proof of inadequacy, but opportunities for learning. Compassion strengthens your mind by reducing fear, stress, and resistance. It transforms challenges into stepping stones instead of obstacles. A positive inner dialogue is not naive, it is practical, grounded, and empowering. When you treat yourself with kindness, your mind becomes a stable, reliable partner rather than a critic that sabotages your efforts. Another critical element is aligning your inner dialogue with purpose. Words and thoughts gain power when they are tied to your why. Simon Sinek emphasizes that leadership and clarity emerge from knowing your purpose. When your thoughts are rooted in meaning, they inspire action and resilience. For example, when facing a setback, replace self-blame with reflection. This is a lesson that brings me closer to my goal. When your internal dialogue reinforces purpose, it reduces distraction, self-doubt, and negativity. Your mind begins to focus on solutions rather than problems. It becomes a compass pointing toward growth rather than a storm pulling you off course. Alignment with purpose gives your inner voice direction, clarity, and impact. Visualization and affirmations are practical tools for maintaining a positive inner dialogue. Simon Sinek often speaks about imagining the future you want to create and taking deliberate steps toward it. When you visualize success, capability, and growth, your mind begins to see possibilities rather than limitations. Affirmations, concise statements of intention or belief, reinforce positive thinking. For example, saying, "I am capable, I am resilient, I can learn," daily strengthens your mental framework. These tools train your mind to focus on solutions, opportunities, and purpose. The combination of awareness, reframing, compassion, and visualization forms a powerful system to maintain a positive inner dialogue, giving your thoughts clarity, confidence, and direction. Creating a positive inner dialogue also enhances your interactions with the world. When your inner voice is supportive and optimistic, it shapes the energy you project outward. People respond to confidence, clarity, and calm. Simon Sinek highlights that leadership is about influence, and your mindset is the first point of influence. When you nurture positivity within, it ripples outward in your actions, decisions, and relationships. Others feel your stability and are more likely to trust, follow, and collaborate with you. Conversely, unchecked negativity inside your mind manifests as stress, impatience, and conflict. By consciously guiding your internal dialogue, you elevate not only your own life, but the lives of those around you, creating a cycle of positive influence. Even in challenging times, your inner dialogue can be your greatest asset. Life will test you with setbacks, criticism, and uncertainty. But when your mind is trained to respond with constructive, empowering thoughts, challenges become manageable. Simon Sinek often notes that leadership is about endurance and resilience, qualities born from mental strength. A positive inner dialogue reminds you of your abilities, reinforces your purpose, and keeps fear in check. It transforms adversity into learning, mistakes into feedback, and obstacles into stepping stones. The mind, when guided positively, becomes a source of calm, courage, and creativity rather than panic or paralysis. Ultimately, creating a positive inner dialogue is an act of leadership, self-leadership. Simon Sinek emphasizes that the first person you must lead is yourself. Your thoughts shape your choices, and your choices shape your life. By intentionally nurturing, encouraging, purposeful, and solution-focused thoughts, you gain control over your mind and, consequently, your reality. Positive inner dialogue is not about ignoring difficulties, it is about choosing the lens through which you perceive them. It is about building resilience, confidence, and clarity. When your internal voice becomes a source of support rather than criticism, you unlock the full potential of your mind, guiding yourself toward growth, purpose, and meaningful impact. Patience is one of the most overlooked yet powerful tools for mastering your mind. In a world that celebrates speed, instant results, and constant stimulation, Simon Sinek reminds us that true growth and mastery take time. The mind cannot be rushed. It requires consistent practice, reflection, and understanding. Patience is not passive waiting, but active persistence. It is the steady application of effort toward a goal, even when results are not immediately visible. Every thought you train, every habit you build, and every perspective you shift requires time to take root. By being patient with yourself and the process of mental control, you allow your mind to develop resilience, clarity, and focus. Impatience leads to frustration, rash decisions, and wasted energy, while patience transforms challenges into opportunities and setbacks into lessons. The patient mind becomes a leader within itself. Learning patience begins with accepting that mastery is a journey, not a destination. Simon Sinek teaches that leadership and self-leadership is not about achieving perfection overnight, but about making consistent, deliberate choices every day. When you try to force results too quickly, you create tension and stress in your mind. Impatience makes you react impulsively rather than respond thoughtfully. Controlling your mind requires understanding that progress is often invisible at first, emerging gradually as a result of steady practice. Each small, intentional decision to pause, reflect, and act wisely strengthens your mental muscles. Over time, these small actions accumulate, creating lasting change. Patience gives your mind the space to grow, heal, and adapt without the pressure of unrealistic expectations. Another aspect of patience is embracing the discomfort that comes with growth. Simon Sinek emphasizes that leadership begins where comfort ends, and the same is true for the mind. When you try to control your thoughts, you will encounter resistance, doubt, fear, and old patterns that resurface unexpectedly. Patience allows you to meet this resistance with understanding rather than frustration. Instead of labeling yourself as weak or incapable, you recognize that the mind is simply learning new ways to respond. Change is gradual. The neural pathways that govern habits, reactions, and beliefs take time to rewire. Each moment of patience is a reinforcement of mental control. By being patient with discomfort, you teach your mind that challenges are not threats, but teachers guiding your growth. Patience also cultivates perspective. When you rush, you often focus solely on immediate results, losing sight of the bigger picture. Simon Sinek teaches that leadership is about vision, seeing beyond the immediate chaos to the long-term purpose. The same principle applies to the mind. By patiently observing your thoughts and responses, you gain insight into patterns, triggers, and opportunities for improvement. You notice how fleeting stress, fear, or frustration really are, and how each choice contributes to long-term mental strength. Patience allows your mind to step back from the noise and assess situations calmly. The ability to hold space for reflection before reacting is a hallmark of mental control and a trait of great leaders. Consistency, rather than intensity, is the essence of patience. Simon Sinek often emphasizes that small, deliberate actions repeated daily yield far more results than sporadic bursts of effort. The same applies to controlling your mind. Practicing mindfulness, positive self-talk, or deliberate focus for even a few minutes each day is more effective than attempting to overhaul your mind in one moment. Each consistent practice strengthens neural pathways, creating automatic patterns of thought and behavior that serve your purpose. Patience ensures that you remain committed over time, even when results are slow or imperceptible. By valuing consistency over speed, you build a resilient, focused, and disciplined mind capable of navigating life with clarity and calm. Being patient with the process also teaches humility. Control over the mind is not achieved through force or ego, but through understanding and practice. Simon Sinek reminds us that leadership is rooted in service and awareness, not power. Similarly, mental control is about respecting the natural pace of growth, acknowledging that mastery comes gradually. Humility allows you to approach challenges with curiosity rather than frustration. You stop expecting instant perfection and start valuing incremental progress. This mindset reduces stress and fosters resilience because you understand that mistakes are part of learning and setbacks are part of growth. Patience transforms your mind into a space of learning rather than a battleground of expectation. In addition, patience strengthens self-trust. When you consistently show up for yourself, even when progress feels slow, your mind learns that it can rely on your guidance. Simon Sinek emphasizes that trust is the foundation of leadership, and self-trust is no different. Every time you respond to challenges with patience rather than panic, you reinforce the belief that you can navigate uncertainty with clarity and composure. This self-trust becomes a stabilizing force, allowing your mind to remain focused and resilient even under pressure. Over time, patience cultivates confidence, not the overconfidence of impulsivity, but the quiet confidence born of consistent, deliberate practice. Patience also enables you to embrace the process of reflection. A mind focused solely on outcomes often overlooks the lessons embedded in the journey. Simon Sinek teaches that leaders reflect to understand, learn, and grow. The same principle applies internally. By patiently observing your thoughts, emotions, and reactions, you gain insight into patterns that either support or hinder your progress. Reflection allows you to identify triggers, refine strategies, and celebrate small wins. Patience ensures that this reflection is thoughtful rather than rushed, leading to deeper understanding and stronger mental control. The journey becomes as valuable as the destination, and the process itself becomes a teacher. Finally, patience transforms challenges into opportunities. Life will always present obstacles, but impatience magnifies them, creating unnecessary stress and anxiety. Simon Sinek often reminds us that leadership is tested in adversity. The same applies to mental control. By patiently navigating challenges, you allow your mind to adapt, innovate, and respond effectively. Each difficult thought or situation becomes a chance to practice discipline, resilience, and focus. Patience ensures that you do not react impulsively, but respond with intention, learning from every experience. Over time, these moments of practice accumulate, producing a mind that is calm, confident, and capable of leading itself through any circumstance. Ultimately, being patient with the process is an act of self-leadership. Simon Sinek teaches that the first person you must lead is yourself, and patience is a critical component of that leadership. Mastery of the mind is not a destination, but a journey, and every step requires consistent, deliberate effort. By embracing patience, you give your mind the time to learn, grow, and strengthen. You cultivate resilience in the face of adversity, clarity amid chaos, and focus despite distraction. Patience turns progress into permanence, challenges into lessons, and effort into empowerment. When you are patient with yourself, you allow your mind to become not just controlled, but powerful, purposeful, and unstoppable.